Hello and welcome to the Birth Untethered podcast. I'm Shelley, a long-time doula, advocate and former university lecturer.
And I'm Kemi, a badass birth keeper, formerly a UK registered midwife.
Just a couple of rebels with decades of combined experience in pregnancy, birth and beyond getting together to share wisdom. We exist to equip birth workers, families and seekers of truth with informed choice, not fear. Come as you are, learn what they don't teach. This is the birth revolution and you're all invited.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Birth Untethered podcast with us today. And as you can see, we have a beautiful new face with us today, and Maha has joined us all the way from the other side of the world. It's an international podcast today, which we're very excited about. And I think Kemi and Maha, you've known each other a little while online. You've got to know each other online.
We have, and I really, on my bucket list is meeting her, and we almost did last November, but we will be next September. So
together, I love that.
Beautiful.
Now, Maha, we obviously we know a little bit about you. Kemi knows a little bit more about you, but we would love for our listeners to know about you. So could you tell us a little bit about what you love about birth? What made you feel like you might want to come and join us on the Birth Untethered podcast to speak about becoming untethered from all of the kind of birth nonsense that's happening and bring it back to the spiritual, to the physiological, to the just wonders of birth that exist that we've kind of lost. We want to find it all again.
Well, I want to start by saying thank you for having me. And I have known Kemi for a little while. We speak the same language around birth. And I just want your listeners to know that I've been teaching as a birth educator and mentor and founder of EmbodyBirth and Bellydance Birth for 30 years. So I didn't pop up just in the last year or 5 or 10. I've been an independent international birth worker. I'm not under the umbrella of any hospital, any system, any organisation. I have been independent, but I am under the universal law that birth is about raising love consciousness when we place mothers and babies at the centre. That is the umbrella under which I work. And a little background to me, I'm of Palestinian Lebanese origin. My father was Palestinian. He was a refugee in 1948. Our family had lived in Palestine for hundreds, thousands of years before 48, when it became Israel and we became ethnically cleansed. I have a beautiful family lineage. The maternal lineage is very strong in my Palestinian roots and, of course, in my Lebanese side. So my father's mother, Amina, birthed 9 babies in our birthing house in a place called Al-Kubab, which was the domes in Palestine. And she used to go on a horse and cart when she was pregnant to this birthing house with all the other children and birth there. And the midwife would come, the daya, as we say in Arabic, and then the children would be around her. And after 40 days and nights, she'd return to her home. So this is very symbolic to me for my grandmother to have birthed those 9 babies. And I feel like I carry her essence in my blood, in my heart, in my veins, and in the work that I do. And I was kidnapped by my dad from my mum with my brother when I was a 6-month-old baby. And I was brought to Australia in 1964 when I was 2. I was born in Kuwait and then brought to Australia. And my brother came as well. He's 2 years older than me. And we didn't know anything about our mother. Our father would not speak about her. The only thing that I knew was that she was an air hostess with a big airline in the Middle East that my father worked for. So she came from a very progressive, independent Lebanese family where all the girls were doing things that most women weren't doing in the 50s. She became an air hostess. We never really found out what actually happened between my parents for my dad to kidnap us. But I've written about it in my book, Dance of the Womb, a little bit, this award-winning book on Bellydance. I'll talk a little bit more about. But so in many ways, my work has stemmed from that place of being the child or the baby taken from its mother. Yeah. So one realizes when one gets to one's 50s and 60s, when asking, what is my life work? What is my purpose? What is it that I'm meant to be doing? And I realized that's what I've always meant to do, is to keep mothers and babies together, because I am the product of the kidnapped, taken baby that carries the loss in my heart and in my body. So that's kind of a very brief overview of my very early years. I was also at boarding school at 4 years of age in Australia without a mother. And then when I was 7, my dad married my stepmother, an Australian woman who was lovely, yet I knew she wasn't part of my cultural roots. There was always this longing and this gap of knowing I don't really belong in Australia. The only peoples that I really connected to, even from a very young age, was Indigenous Australians. I felt some connection to the earth, to spirit, to heart, to womb, to the maternal lineage that I felt in Australia was not evident in the mainstream, but was evident in the Indigenous culture. And many people thought I was Aboriginal as well, and we are Indigenous peoples of the world. So that was probably the best part of my dad bringing me here, but culturally, other than that, I really didn't feel like I fitted into Australia at all, coming from these very strong Palestinian, Muslim, Lebanese Christian roots. So I grew up here. My father married when I was 7, Australian woman, and I always felt that I was very blessed to have had a Western education so I could express and be articulate and put into words emotion through poetry and observe the world around me, the spiritual world, the sacred world. And it wasn't until I got pregnant with my first son, Kailash, who will be 29 this year, that suddenly a doorway opened. But I had met my mother a year before conceiving him, or 6 months before conceiving him.
You've met your mother for the first time?
For the first time when I was 33 in Lebanon. So long story, again, it's all in my book, Dance of the Womb. But she was found. I had one photo of her with her name in Arabic on the back and her registration number. And she was traced through the Lebanese consulate in Sydney. And it took 5 years to find her. So my brother and I took another year. I'd shaved all my hair off. And I thought, I cannot believe I found my mum and I've got no hair. This is in the early 90s, you know, when it was trendy to shave your hair and do all that. Before social media.
Aren't we glad there's no evidence from back then?
Exactly. So it took a year and I was pulling on my hair all year. Grow. So I don't want to make my mum bald, you know. And then my brother and I went to Lebanon in the end of 1995, October 1995, actually, which is 40 years ago. Am I right? Yeah, 95.
Yeah. 30 years. Yeah.
Not quite that old. So we flew to Beirut after a year of talking to her. Like, I couldn't believe that she'd been found. She was now 67. She didn't know where we were. She knew absolutely nothing about us. 1963 it was, so you can imagine.
Did she have other children?
Never had any children. She said, after your father, I had one man is enough. I don't want any more children. So she told everyone she'd never been married, never had children. Wow. Yeah. So we were like, had to in a way, yeah. And I have to say my father was very abusive as well with my brother and I, and he wasn't, you know, particularly good man in that regard, in the emotional heart side. But I also understand because he was a Palestinian refugee and what he would have had to go through with that. So you understand.
Yes.
We don't understand when we're younger. We just see that the impact of the
100%.
trauma.
100%.
Do you know, I find that very interesting, that I think all three of us have a difficult childhood in that way of
Yeah.
abuse from the parents. And so that draws some people to that connection of love, being connected, togetherness, holding mothers and babies and their connection as being precious, holding things together in that way. And that is, I think it's a fire. We spoke on our first introductory episode about the fire that drives us for the work that we do. So it's really interesting that you speak about that. Do you feel that from all of the things that have happened in your childhood, it has you that connection you were saying about the Aboriginal people and the connection to the land and that like feeling of belonging and being together, is that something you feel that drives you in your work with the birth world?
Yes, well, I think sometimes when we do have disconnection and we don't have a place to belong, we understand the acute connection and bonding between a mother and baby because it's missing. If it's not missing, sometimes we don't even consider it as having impact or having any relevance in a sense. But when that is severed at a very young age, which happens often when people get adopted out as well, then we go searching to belong. It's that natural instinct, that biological instinct to find our mother and to be connected and reconnected to her. So yes, these things built the foundation of my work. But as I said, it's only as I got through the menopause and digging deep and excavating down that I started to see more deeply the patterns of why I'm doing and why I'm here. Yeah. So I knew it, but now I know it, and I've always known it somatically, but this is the deepest story of the womb is what menopause is about, because we're not shedding those stories each month. So we have to go down, down, down into the deepest story of our womb. And that is where the diamond lives. But that's another thing because I work with women in menopause as well. And we've got that all upside down. But so my experiences of this and birthing have put me in a place that I deeply understand the journey, sacred journey of women. So yes, after meeting my mum, I became pregnant with my first son after being told by a doctor that you will never get pregnant naturally because you have polycystic ovaries, which was 1990, before anyone really understood what polycystic ovaries were. Now we understand the connection to insulin resistance, but for me it was more an emotional hole in my body that was seeking a place to fit in. And so I defied the doctor. If someone says no to me, I go the other way and I do everything that I
It's something else you've got in common.
Yeah,
that's
prove
right.
them wrong.
Exactly. Like, what man lives in my body? As I say to women, the doctor doesn't live in your body. The midwife doesn't live in your body. The obstetrician doesn't live in your body, nor does your partner. You do with your baby. Tune in to what is going on in that psychic highway that runs between mother and baby, heart and womb and baby. So I got good practice from all of those things that happened to me as a child and baby. And then I got pregnant 6 months after meeting my mum, and it felt like I dropped into the mother essence within myself.
Yes.
Yeah. And that emotionality is what we leave out of the equation when we do birth preparation. We are so superficial in the way that we put out there to women of how we prepare for birth. Yeah. It's always about numbers and figures and mechanics and all of these things, but the emotional, spiritual, psychic, sexual body is left out of the equation. And that's where my work in EmbodyBirth takes us on a journey through visioning our own birth in the way that we want. And what are these obstacles? Where are these gates opening to freedom? What is free birth? To me, free birth is not going and having nobody with you. It should be subscribed to every woman. That free birth is the freedom to birth with who, where, when, how you want. With your baby. I've been saying that for decades. Freedom to birth in your own choice. And I know that's what part of untethered birth looks like.
Yeah.
So my first son, now this was very interesting because he was born 6 weeks premature. So I actually had been backpacking around Europe. I was living in London and England and doing all these other wild things. And then I got pregnant 2 weeks after arriving, after never, ever being pregnant. So, and that was, after meeting my mum. And came back to Australia and came to a beautiful place in Australia called Byron Bay, which at the time, in the 80s and early 90s, was a very divine, conscious, maternal female place. Yeah.
Yes.
And the earth, the mountains, the indigenous voice of woman. Yeah, beautiful place.
I visited it and you can feel it.
Yes, it's an amazing place. I lived there for 25 years and that's where I seeded all of my work. So we used to have a pregnancy support group in Byron Bay in the late 80s and the 90s. And in that support group came so many home birth midwives and traditional midwives each week. And we would sit in a big circle, maybe 50 people, mothers and partners and the midwives. And we would talk about instinctive birth, intuitive birth, earth birth, homeopathics, herbs, everything you could imagine in the natural way. And then you would look at the midwives, you'd feel into them as a mother and feel into your body and who is resonant with not only my body, but my baby. Together, we choose which midwife am I going to interview to support and stand by me on the cutting edge of life and death. Who do I feel would be good for my baby and myself? And then we would interview. We might pick 2 or 3 midwives. And then we would sit with them as a mother and say, what can you offer to me? What can you give me? And can you hear me? Can you listen to what I need? And so some would do homeopathic, some might do herbs, some might carry oxygen and drugs to the birth, some may not, whatever it was. So then we would sit and say, I'll get back to you, and go and sit and process that. What feels good in my body? Who feels good? What resonance do I have with which midwife? And it was just the way it was. I never even imagined anything else. That's what was available to us. And so you would choose a midwife, and I chose a beautiful midwife. For me, I always chose and looked for the older woman, that maternal mother, older lady. And I had a beautiful midwife. My son came 6 weeks premature. So I'd only been in Byron for 6 weeks. I think I returned from England 33 weeks and just got a house and just got settled. And then he came. So I ended up going to the hospital with my midwife because he was that 6 weeks early, and it was my choice. She wasn't forced to do it. I just felt, yes, I need to, go. I was 34 weeks pregnant. And I had a beautiful birth in the hospital. I stood up for myself. I was very connected to my roots. I saw my grandmother and I drew on her strength, and I drew on the strength of all the women who came before. And I knew that that's all I needed, because I was next in line to gift the world with the imprint of the love consciousness for birth. So I dug deep, and he was born, but unfortunately he had hyaline membrane, so he wasn't breathing, his lungs weren't formed, and it was very sad because he had to be helicoptered away to the next city hospital. So I didn't go with him because they didn't take the mothers. So he was put in this very big humidity crib and helicoptered away. And when I came home, I didn't have a baby. And I thought to myself, Maha, this is what you have been journeying through, this disconnection, this loss. And that birth has given you the same story. Your baby now being from you.
Separated from
Do not collapse. This story is for you to heal, to feel, and to go deep into, the emotion of this. No matter how hard this is, you stay strong and you stay centered for your baby. And I got that lesson very clearly from Spirit, and I stood very strong. The next day we went to the hospital, my partner and I, and he was in intensive care with the ventilation 100%. And there was my idea of having a home birth with my home birth midwife completely taken from me, all dismantled. Yet this light came through, this diamond shone on my story and said, here is an opportunity to heal what your mother could not heal. No more passing on the trauma. This is your opportunity. So I had to make a choice. I either collapse or I stand strong. And I chose to stand strong. I didn't have a mother to come and visit me at the hospital when he was in intensive care. There was nobody around me in the city that I knew. So I was all alone again, carrying this weight of my son and I. And he was in the hospital, I think, for 6 or 7 days. And I saw, other babies dying in front of me. It was very confronting to be in that intensive care, tiny little babies. He was actually 2 kilos, so he was quite large.
Good weight.
Yeah. But this not breathing and all of that, I just had to embrace and face everything. The other side of that is what we teach in embodied birth, is in birth, we have to face every unfolding moment as it is. Not what I wanted it to be, not what I wished for. I have to be here and now, facing the unfolding of my womb story and meeting whatever arises. And I'll talk more about the dance, because that's what the dance brings us into the present moment, into presence, sacred presence. So I had done that in his birth. So now as a mother, I have to pull on that same strength of being with what is and facing the darkness to find that light. And I stayed with him, and then I held him on the 3rd day, I think it was, and then I started breastfeeding him on the 4th day. I'd been pumping milk, and he made a massive improvement when he got my milk. And then he was another 2 or 3 days, and then we came by ambulance back to the hospital where I'd had him, the rural hospital near Byron, and I was there, I think, for another week with him. And that was quite stressful because I had to feed him every 2 hours. So I'd get a little bit of sleep, get woken up by the night watchman would knock on the door, and I had to walk down the corridor, in the lift, downstairs, feed him, come back up. So it was quite rigorous, and I was pretty exhausted. But I faced it all, and I just stayed true to what the experience asked of me. Experiences of birth ask of us as the mother to stay true to what is being revealed through the sacred womb and the sacred heart. And it is those revelations, or we call them also principles and revelations in embodied birth, that we gift the world with through our birth experiences. And what we have now is women who are robbed at every which way we look. When women are robbed, babies are robbed, and universal consciousness is robbed of the birth experience of evolving humanity. And that is why we say in embodied birth, as a mother, you carry the medicine that can heal and change not only you and your maternal lineage, but the world. And every country I go to, everywhere I teach, is this robbing accompanied with fear and trauma as the narrative, as I know you know.
Yeah.
And because we don't trust in birth, we don't trust in mothers, we don't trust in the process, we don't trust in the lineage, we are so scared of handing that power to women and saying, work with that power that lives within you, alchemize that power and show me, reveal to me, what could the world do with that consciousness? That is why after 30 years, I am still teaching embodied birth. I could have given up years ago, because it's a bloody hard working in sacred birth, and it's got worse since COVID, to try and wake up women and the system and the world. Sometimes I'm at a loss because I carry this somatically.
Yeah.
And I know I've spoken with you, Kemi. What the hell do I do with this knowledge when I'm knocking on a door that has its back to me? And I'm tired of it. But I keep going because I know it's my gift and it's my life story and it's my guidance. And so I gave birth to my second son 3 years later, and on a beautiful property just outside of Byron, and I had beautiful home water lotus birth. He came 2 weeks early, but it was all fine. I had a beautiful midwife, and his birth was a true new healing. So my first son's birth was healing the father in a way. Oh, sorry, the first birth was healing the mother, and then my second son's birth was healing my father. And that's when I saw my father as a baby in his mother's arms, innocent, and then he had gone through this terrible story of dispossession and ethnic cleansing and being bombed and massacres and everything that he told me that he saw. And I thought, that's why he's carrying this trauma that he hasn't healed. It is up to you, Maha, to heal it for your lineage. So I felt that's what happened with my second son, Tariq's birth. And it was just a really beautiful birth, transformational. And he had a lotus birth, which I want to share something about that with you, because I know
please
you
do.
talk.
Yeah.
So in 1999, he was born, and the same year after he was born, Roshana Shivam wrote her book, Lotus Birth. And I went when he was a baby to her presentation of her book. And working in the birthing world with the traditional midwives and the old school midwives, I'd learned about lotus birth. And I thought, why isn't everybody doing this? This is the most magnificent design. The cord is pulsing, the baby's receiving all of its blood and oxygen and stem cells from its placenta. It belongs in the baby. Why cut it? Why touch it? And if you do cut it, wait. You know, they say wait till white or wait till it stops pulsing. But also wait, because there is a spiritual imprint to wait for. And so with my son, I was changing his nappy and the cord fell off, his belly button dried off and popped off. And then I saw this most magnificent auric field go all around him and close and seal. And I said to my partner, oh my God, I've got goosebumps. He's arrived. He's here. He has arrived. And I knew he was now earthside, and he was complete, and he was whole, and he had no trauma from the birth and the lotus birth.
Yeah.
And obviously the breastfeeding. And I saw this sealing take place around him. And I was like, wow, that is absolutely beautiful. And as my mind always goes, I wish every baby born to every mother could be left alone to have this experience, but to know that it's possible.
Because
To know
I
what's possible.
have to, because I'm so I'm just moved listening to you, like, and crying for minutes. But you being able to see like the completion of your son, I think, because we've got into such a ridiculous place that we can believe in Wi-Fi, but we can't believe in that auric field being completed by leaving the cord intact. And you see, this is what I'm just so grateful to you for so many things that you've mentioned in this conversation. But waiting, that the power of waiting for that completion, you weren't sure what you were waiting for. You'd heard a lecture about it. And then you thought, I'm going to trust this, because actually the cord separates itself from the umbilicus at day 4 or 5, not in day 40. You know, it's efficient. It does it at day 4 or 5, and the fact that it does it itself in an expeditious way, I cannot see why we don't all wait. I can't. I can't. So again, it's this thing you're talking about, the mothers being robbed, and thus the next generation being robbed. That's another robbery. That's another robbery, because I've always thought, so what happens? Because I can't see it. I've always thought, what happens? You saw it. You saw it. I trusted in it. So that's why sadly, I was completely in the dark when I was having my own children. But that's part of my cycle as well, is giving to the earth by restoring the blueprint. So by facilitating it, by drinking tea in it, by knitting in it, by mopping a brow in it, to restore the blueprint. So I'm just thankful to you that someone's been able to actually explain. We don't have to see it to believe it, of course, but you've actually seen it, and I love that, and I'm so grateful to you for that.
Thank you, Kemi. And also not just seen it, but felt it.
You felt it 100%.
Yes. Yeah. And that is the exquisite nature of uninterrupted, unmedicated, spontaneous birth. Because in that place, and we talk about this in EmbodyBirth, the 360-degree vision opens. What's in front of me, what's behind me, and what is to the side of me. So that expansion is what we are talking about. Birth is about energy expansion, physical, emotional, but there's an energetic expansion that needs to happen, that we as mothers need to drop in to be able to feel and see the gifts of birth. And that is what gets robbed as well, along with everything else.
Yeah, it's intentionally so, isn't it?
Yes, because that's where the power lives, the fire and the power for changing the consciousness of humanity. Yeah. And that is why we have to keep telling women, do not be afraid of your power. It is there for a reason. And in birth, we ignite that power. And I have a poem in my book, Dance of the Womb. We are like a fire that rages across the planet. Get rid of all the shit for the new to come through. That's what birth gives us the opportunity for. And just aside, my work in Vietnam has taken off in Vietnam. I've got many teachers in Vietnam. They did not have any childbirth education program, and they've taken on EmbodyBirth. And the changes that are happening in Vietnam, so, you know, for me, I saw the vision, Vietnam War in the 70s. And I saw pictures of that on TV, and it affected me really deeply in 1970, 1972, when I was 8 and 10. And I was like, what the hell is this? The burning of children, that girl running down the street with all the flesh coming off her, stayed with me. And I always had this affinity. How could we change the trajectory for mothers and babies and children? And now Vietnam has been taken up, my EmbodyBirth work. And they are having home births, water births, lotus births. And dancing, all the women are dancing. And it's like this whole new society is developing from the EmbodyBirth teachings. And it's not about me, Maha Al Musa, going, oh, look about, no. It's about, I was given a gift and I am handing over that gift. That's what I've always wanted. Not even to become famous or to likes, and I couldn't care less. My work and my vision is to change the consciousness to peace and love for all mothers and babies and societies. And that's what holds me steady. And when I see Vietnam and I see what they've come from and how these beautiful children are being born now, it warms my heart. And there was a doctor who built a hospital outside of Saigon, an obstetrician, and one of my teachers had a baby in her hospital, and she was completely in awe. She said, in all my 30 years, I have never seen such a birth. and the woman was moving and dancing in a hospital. She had never seen a natural birth at all in her 30 years and a water birth. And she said, anyone who wants to come and birth in this hospital has to do Maha's EmbodyBirth program through my teachers, because then I know you've done the work. You are ready for this. And she said it healed me. And this is an obstetrician of 30 years. I've gone and I've taught in China. 6 times I've been to China. The human rights abuses in childbirth in China, the one-child policy, all those things. I went first time in 2017, inviting international teachers there, not just any old international teacher, someone who had a message. And I was going into over 5 times going there, many hospitals teaching obstetricians and midwives and doctors. I'm not an obstetrician. I'm not a midwife. I'm not a doctor. I am a sacred midwife. I do not want the piece of paper. I couldn't care less. I'll rip it up. I don't want it.
You really
I want to retain. No, I don't want it. But they're listening to me, and they come to me and they say, Maha, you know what you teach? You teach us about love. Mm-hmm. And I say to them, what is the main player hormone in birth? Tell me. Oxytocin. What is oxytocin about? It is about love. Never forget, you are carrying and holding and serving the energy of love with mother and baby. And they say, we are going to change the way we practice in our hospitals, what you teach us. And the funniest thing of all, not funny, but difficult for me, is the West has not taken up my work. The East has. I have tried to get into the UK and come and teach. Europe, I mean, small numbers. I went last year, but I've taught in Japan, I've taught in China, I've got teachers in the Philippines, in Vietnam, and, these places that understand, they recognize something in the language that I speak. It's an ancient knowing. It is the non-colonized womb. And even they are being colonized, but they can hear something in the language that really rings true. And I love that. But I want more in the West.
Yeah, don't we all?
Yes, I want to come and teach you in the West. And I want to also take my work back to the Arab world as well.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to a couple of women, one in Egypt who just did my training and another one in Lebanon. Yeah. We feel that the Arab world needs this work to remember who we are. Yeah, in the East. Yeah. All women do. But
when I just saw like an image of you breathing life as you teach and as you speak, even you've got something on you, like this energy that starts to take away layers. Honestly, literally, I mean, obviously you and I have a lot in common. Yeah. However, I'm still having an experience just listening to you. There's just, I feel like in the West, I was born and bred here in the UK, but I feel unless we accept this pneuma, this breath of life that you and a few others, not many of you hold this, unless we accept it, I think we will die here. I think we've got a falling birth rate. Yes. And the people that are giving birth are being traumatized and abused. And so I hear every day somebody, it'll either be a mother or her partner, that will declare, like, that's it, no more children, and are limiting their families to 1 or 2 children. We already have a situation where we're not replacing ourselves in generations. So there are less babies being born in the future. So we are dwindling. And I think unless we receive this message right now, there's somebody else who's got a similar message, Billy Harrigan in Canada, who sees it from a 360 standpoint like you do as well. And she's sounding the alarm as well. I think we've got an opportunity here in the West to hear this now, or we are going to become extinct.
I agree.
There's so much fear that's been developed over such a long time isn't there, in women, in fearing being a woman, in fearing the power of womanhood. And it's been very, squashed, burnt out of us, destroyed, the sacred roots of that destroyed in the Western culture, because the patriarchal structures fear that power. And in that fear of that, women now fear their power. They fear birthing into their power. They fear becoming the lioness, that the feisty, like, protection of children. They fear the journey that, going through birth and parenting brings you, that brings up, like you're saying, it makes you face those patterns, and it brings it to you. And I really see that in birth, in different people's patterns and what people think they're going to have, and challenging them on that and saying, okay, yeah, this is your dream idea, but what happens if something else, the baby decides something else? What happens if that's not your path? What are you going to do? How are you going to feel? What is going to come up for you if a different path is chosen? How are we going to navigate that? If you sit with that, what comes up for you? What do you feel in that moment? And that kind of reflecting back, it's something I say to people that I look after. It's always important to have a reflection afterwards about what happened for them, what came up for them. And the real deep learning often comes from that, when, how you're saying that things came up for you and then you reflect back on it, and then now later in life you're reflecting back on it more. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion, isn't it? Like, you discover something and it sort of feels revelationary, and then you kind of sit with that for a while, and then later on something else comes up and you're like, and it goes into an even deeper level, and this kind of lifelong journey of learning and coming back to the roots of love that is just so important. It has been quashed. And the more you delve into it, the more you see how in every aspect of life it's quashed, because the people in power want to make money. They don't want us to feel love. They don't want us to feel connection, because then they can't sell weapons. Then they can't, if we are well and we are aware of our body and that something is not serving us, and so we step away from it, they can't make money selling us medicines. And that money is driving, the money and the power is driving everything. And what people are not realizing is this sacred power of love and connection is actually what we need. And you're right, Kemi, it's sort of dying out. We don't want to have the love of a family anymore, because actually with all the other responsibilities that we have, it's too much. I can't give myself fully to my children because I've got to work and pay the mortgage, and my husband and I both have to work in order to pay the mortgage.
That's
and
right.
So we don't have the capacity for love. So that capacity is being quashed by the interruption of the birthing process, by the interruption of our intuition, by the interruption of living a life with your family. And I see your frustration, Maha, and I know that Kemi and I feel it too, with that. We're like, wake up, everybody. This thing is so simple yet so profound, and you have the choice. You have the power to choose something different, and we're shouting it so loud because we want everybody to feel that, to come to themselves, to discover themselves, to have this wonderful, enjoy the journey, even the difficult parts of the journey, and what that brings for us. And so I am so grateful for your continued work in this area, and your continued spark of wanting to spread the word wider and all that kind of thing. Don't ever give up. That's so we'll keep going. And
it's easier.
The same conversation.
We do, and it's easier said, because I totally understand, Maha. At the end of the day, there is this pull all the time, like, is anyone listening? Why am I doing this in my 60s? I get it. I'm going to be 60 soon as well. But I'm just so grateful for you that you keep going.
Well, the thing is as well, is that we, at 63 now, I have perspective, right? Because I've been doing this for 30 years, I can see there was a time when women were in their power. In the 80s and early 90s, it wasn't that we were never. And what I see is when COVID happened, because before COVID, there was a window of opportunity. There was birth conferences I was flying to America, China, I spoke to 2,000 midwives at a huge conference, you know, and America, I spoke at the Human Rights in Childbirth Conference. In India, I was one of the keynote speakers as an independent speaker. That is less and less now, that you get somebody like, what's your label? What's your certificate? My certificate is that I am a life carrier and holder. That's what I'm a mother. That's my certificate. Yeah. My experience as a mother and as a teacher and educator is something that I've created from my life, what I'm supposed to do. That's my guidance. That's my label. And when COVID happened, when I went into China, they were opening up. They wanted to understand a new consciousness of birth. And it was building and it was building, and my work was building. And then, boom, COVID just, if you're going to talk about 1,000 tons of fear coming down in one go, COVID was it. And then everybody just lost their mind, lost their connection, just went cuckoo in a way. And all the things that we've been doing, you know, working with Michel Odent, opening up birth, he'd come and he, you know, endorsed my book and understood what I did. And we talked, you know, all these people were doing amazing things. And it was almost like we were like walking up the branch of the tree, then boom, I'm over there suddenly. What the hell just happened? And everything has just dropped since COVID. This is what I can see. Yeah. And so we're now trying to get women to wake up again. But they are in a hypnotic daze. It's not their fault. It's what the system, as you were saying, Shelley, the system that has done. It is money and greed. And when we make somebody feel that fear, then she loses her center. As I say to women, build the foundations of your birth house that lives within you. The birth house lives in you. Build those foundations. What is your vision? Who is this baby? What is it that you want to heal or celebrate or alchemize from your lineage? These are the questions in EmbodyBirth that we ask. And we don't just ask it, we feel it through the dance. And this is the other side of everything. We have intellectualized the birth process to such a degree that we are just talking heads. Every time we open, and we're all doing it because that's the access we have. Yeah. But it's like my work is about coming into the body. The body speaks. The issues live in the tissues. They know what needs to be moved. Where does the awareness need to go? The breath, the opening, the closing. What is my body doing in this dance of life, the dance of the womb? So it is somatic. Birth is somatic. In EmbodyBirth, we say the baby doesn't come out of your head. The baby comes out of your yoni. Get down to earth to birth. You cannot think birth. You have to feel birth. Feel isn't through talking. Feel is through that hypnotic, meditative, mindful movement, breath, sound, and movement. The trilogy of birth. We distill it down, down, down. So all that noise and all the talking heads are out of the room. And what am I left with? My body wisdom, my innate knowledge, my baby's wisdom, the psychic highway, the energy that envelops me. And that is what I'm working with the physical body. And every woman knows how to birth. That blueprint of birth lives within the wisdom of the womb, and it is universal. Nobody can take that from you unless you hand it over because of that conditioning and that fear. Nobody can take it from you if you know how to work with it. And that is what we teach in EmbodyBirth. And I do want to just mention, I had my third baby at home at 46. My beautiful daughter, Amina, bless her darling soul, a beautiful home water lotus birth again, breastfed for 8.5 years, breast nurtured until I was 50.5, a year post-menopause, and I stood in the worldwide media as only the second woman in the world to stand up for natural term and public breastfeeding from 2012 to 2016. And still Google Maha Al Musa and breastfeeding and see everything that I did, from Discovery Channel documentary to television in Australia to magazines and the shit that I received, but I didn't care. I stood strong in my integrity as the tiger mother, because when we birth physiologically, uninterrupted, unmedicated, on our own medicine, that is where the tiger grows. The raw grows from that place. It doesn't grow from being downtrodden and fear. Yeah. So we stand with integrity, even when all those javelins are being thrown at us. If you have integrity and you believe in who you are, your child, your vision, your story, you keep moving forward. Doesn't matter what anyone does to you. Yeah. I had all kinds of attacks from all kinds of people, especially the media, because they don't want a self-referenced, sovereign, autonomous mother showing the world what that looks like. So, you know, oh, she's a woman of color. Yeah, let's get her on that one. What would she know? Middle Eastern woman, you know, like what would she know? They're just a primal, like nothing. Oh, she's Palestinian. What would she know? No one cared about me being Palestinian. Until 2 years ago, nobody even knew the story of Palestine. It was just sort of this, you know, I used to always say I'm Palestinian Lebanese. I come from this culture. In the birth world, Kemi, nobody really cared. And then I'd teach, you know, and I'd show the belly dance and all the midwives would be laughing and snickering. I'd say, this is my cultural dance. Yes. This is in the West. Yes. They take it like a cabaret, like a stupid thing. That's not what it is. This is my native dance of the womb, a woman's dance of the feminine, the dance of strength, the dance of knowing. And you're laughing. I'd go to America. I spoke at a big conference and people were running up to me going, you're the belly dancer. And my partner who came with me said, you've got to stop calling it belly dance for birth. They just think you're this cabaret belly dancer. No one has taken your work seriously, Maha, the sacredness. Because I used to call it just belly dance birth, thinking that people would understand. That's why I added EmbodyBirth, using belly dance birth as a somatic practice. But the West labels you and puts you in a box as they do birth. Yes. They can't see outside of that.
Do you think that's the discomfort, that sort of, the discomfort of being embodied, of connecting, because people are so disassociated from that connection because they fear being a part of that connection because of the kind of witch burning, lineage that comes back, especially through the West culture, that if you are connected with yourself, that you are going to be persecuted, like you say, and people fear that persecution, and so they don't. If they touch it's actually very terrifying. And COVID gave an excuse for cruelty in the name of safety to women. That cruelty came back to women in a way that was starting to lessen. I mean, I'm not saying it's this, but it was starting to lessen. Like you say, they were starting to, people were recognizing birthing at home is safer. It was why are we going into the hospital? That realization started to come, and then everything shut down. And then in COVID, of course, people were like, well, I want to birth at home. I don't want to go to a hospital. I had a client who, saw me after COVID, so that she didn't know about doulas during COVID, but she was literally sent a letter from the hospital saying, when you're in labor, you will come in, you will be given a vaginal examination, you will be given an epidural, and your labor will be augmented with synthetic oxytocin, and your partner will be not allowed to be with you until we deem that you are in active labor. You will not be allowed support. And that was her experience of birth. And then when her labor was being augmented and her baby was struggling from the augmentation and she wanted to move, the midwife literally forced her face to look at the monitor and said, look, you're killing your baby because you're pushing when I'm telling you not to. So no, she's having synthetic oxytocin augmented labor, and you are tormenting and torturing her and removing her from her partner. And that the effects of people birthing in COVID, of people birthing in terror, from your lineage that it carries through, and that people need to become connected again to be able to heal that trauma so that it's not continually passed down. I mean, we're seeing it with world events now. The previous trauma, if people do not then become embodied, they repeat the trauma on other people. They take the trauma and they bring it onto other people. And it's what we're watching, what's happening in the world now. And because we are more aware of world events, people are seeing it happening before their eyes and how devastating it is. And it can feel very powerless. And of course, the people in control want us to feel powerless, because with powerlessness comes disassociation, comes apathy, comes the feeling, well, what can I do? But how can I help? I can't possibly help that situation. I can't do anything. And what you have brought for me today, Maha, is that your strength is just, and your calling of love, you're wanting to share that love, you're wanting to share that. Embodying is what is going to help us. It's really actually quite simple tools. We don't have to do anything big and grand, and we don't have to be the amazing strong voice that you've been, standing in all of that hatred and, you know, misunderstanding coming towards you and things like that. Actually, what we can do is sit with ourselves, sit with our bodies, connect with our own power. And that gives you the fire to maybe give the fire to someone else, give the knowledge to someone else, and that it can ripple out in these circles of the amazing feminine power. And I find it so difficult to hear you saying that people who are calling themselves midwives are sniggering at you embodying the womb energy in the movement of it. As soon as you start to move, like when you're talking, and immediately I feel it touches my soul in a way. I just, you know, you could feel that essence, that energy that is so important for birth, that connection and that embodiment. And it just, they're not real midwives in my mind. Anyone who would laugh at that, they just don't get it, do they? They don't get the importance of birth and embodiment. And I don't, you know, I've gone off on a big rant there. I don't even know what I was trying to say, but I suppose it's just a huge gratitude to you for sharing all of these things for us, and just highlighting world issues and boiling it down to the need for love and the need for connection, and that is what is going to help us. And it's what we need. And yeah, that is just so important, a message. So thank you.
And the thing is when I travel the world and I teach, and I say to the circle of midwives and doctors and obstetricians when I'm in the East, the first question I ask when we all sit down, I've done my introduction, is I say, I'm going to go around the circle and ask each one of you 2 questions. When you take off your label, who are you? When a woman is walking, as I said, on the cutting edge of life and death, she wants to know who is walking with me. So who are you? And the second question that I ask you all is, why are you a midwife? Why are you a doctor? Why are you an obstetrician? Why? Tell me why. And most of the time, because these people carry the label of that thing that they are, nobody ever pulls them up or makes them look deeper, because they're the white coats that know it all to themselves. So we're also fearful of asking them the questions back. But I'm not. I ask them, and they're like, no one's ever asked us. And if I take off my label, you know, who are you? Half the time they don't even know who they are. And I said, how can you, disconnection, be with woman, midwife, with woman, if you're not even with your own feminine aspect? And you're telling someone, you know, to push or to do this or that while you're completely outside of your body. That is not how birth works. And they're like, wow, I've never heard this before, because we're not a pathology. We are a whole woman birthing our whole baby in our wholeness and our holiness. That is who you are standing with and walking with. And if you can't, then sit down and be quiet and let her get on with it. But nobody ever pulls up the birth keepers, as in the ones in the system, because we're all afraid. I did a VBAC conference the other year, well, 2018, it was an online, and mine was Valuing Birth Awareness for Change, VBAC, looking at emotional intelligence in the birth room with the birth keepers. For some reason, when it comes to birth, we don't look at these kinds of ideas. They're in the boardroom, in the executive company or whatever, but with birth, they're never looked at. It's kind of like we're blinded by something when it comes to birth. We don't have the same principles that we expect from a birth professional as we might from even our car mechanic who does our car. We have a high expectation. Don't fuck up my car. But for some reason, we're really frightened of pulling up those in the system.
So true, so true. We're very much more interested in people not fucking up our cars than actually fucking up my room, my baby's head, my heart, my relationship, my career, my sex life, my body image.
Exactly.
We are so cozy. We're so settled with that happening to every woman.
Yes.
You know what's really coming up for me?
Because we don't revere it.
Yes, exactly. We don't revere women. We don't honor them. We
the
don't
maternal
care.
voice.
That's right.
We don't care about her because we pathologized her. We put her in a box. And that's why I say you're a whole woman birthing your whole baby in your wholeness and your holiness. We never see it as holy. And when I spoke at the Human Rights Conference in India, that's what I spoke about. When you enter a temple, you take off your shoes. You wrap the cloth. You are silent with reverence before you walk into that temple. You breathe. But what do? Barge into the room. Ask questions. Tell her to do this, do that, whatever it is. What the hell is going on? We haven't learned to respect sexually the woman's body and in the birth process. They are the same energy. Sexual energy, birth energy, life force energy dance together. Yet for some reason that Western mind separates body, mind, heart, spirit. It's not seen as whole. And women are just seen as though, and I say this as well, we just cut her up into pieces. The breasts, breastfeed. The uterus, births. Yep. The whatever. She's just pieces of a woman. And that disconnection and disassociation, because those who often walk with us, not everybody, but a large percentage, are so disconnected themselves. There is no other way to see it, because if they were whole, the experience would be whole. If they was connected to their sacred nature of living and life, then birth would have that same essence. So it shows me the disconnect and the environment that we put women to birth. I say, how can you put a feminine rite of passage that is meant to envelop in intuition, instinct, opening, releasing, surrendering, all of those things, and place her in a hierarchical system with someone at the top and someone at the bottom, usually the mother and baby, and expect her body to open with ease? For me, that's fundamental. You're placing a rite of passage, a ceremony in a hierarchical system, and we're wondering why it's all fucked up.
Yeah, and we don't put the woman at the top where she should be, and everyone else serving her. Yeah.
Center.
Yes, that's right. You're right. Yeah, at the center, and everyone's serving around. Yeah, like the ancient, cave painting imagery that we have of the birthing woman at the center, and everyone around supporting that process. And it's really making me think about the term birth keeper and the people that are keeping the birth space safe for the woman at the center, the person at the center. And it makes me think, if you are entering a birth space, I think you really need to reflect. If you are there, are you keeping birth, or are you a birth captor? Are you holding things as if you have power over them, as if you get to dictate what happens, as if you know better than the person who is giving birth? Or are you sitting in reverence at the amazing thing that this person's body is doing, and you are keeping and holding a safe space for that person to unravel, to unwind, to unfurl, to blossom, to bloom? Because I think a lot of people who think that they are keeping birth are actually captive. Captive.
And I go even a step further than that, Shelley. In one of my principles of my EmbodyBirth program, what you've said, exactly that, but also, could you even fathom the idea that you will learn from that mother, that you will receive the gifts of the experience from her. That is one of my principles in EmbodyBirth that I teach teachers, that you actually, in your humbleness and in your reverence and in that mystical place, because birth is a mystical experience too, what could you receive from the mother and learn about your own life? Because that, yes, that is what birth is about. And that's when I talk about the evolution of consciousness. When we give women that, we'll not even give it, when we honor that space, that reverence, it's like a living library. The living book is within, read her. And then through energy and through osmosis and through revelation and through that opening and surrender, all of that moves through me, and whoever is in the room is touched by that love essence, and they learn about love, what it is to forgive, what it is to truly connect and have compassion for other human beings. And what we are seeing is a disregard for the greater good of humanity through the birth process. We have all of these modalities in the world. People do, psychotherapy, and guys go and live in a mountain in a cave. And, we do all this dance therapy, and we do, psychology and all these things to learn about life, taking ayahuasca and taking plant medicine. But we say in EmbodyBirth, women give birth. Women give birth. Why is it that we are not placing birth in these sacred modalities? Every day, 360,000 babies are born. Imagine if we harness that sacred consciousness of every woman birthing, and we placed it in the same paradigm as all those other healing modalities. What would the world look like? And it's one of the things I talk about in my training and in my workshops. And people have never heard that before. But in birth, there is a possibility for that kind of understanding, the somatic, the mind, the body, the heart, the spirit. And all we have is the trauma narrative and the fear narrative. It's this linear pathway. And I'm trying to say, open that field to that 360-degree vision. What else is possible? Why start at the bottom of the ladder? Start at the top and open up to what else could be possible for me and my vision and my experience, my family, my human family through birth. That is what my work is about. It's taking it to another consciousness. And that's probably why in the West that it hasn't been caught up with yet, because it's an Eastern philosophy too. It's just a part of who I am. This thing about burning the witches and all that, that's not part of my narrative. And I understand it, but I think that's why in the West my work hasn't been embraced to the degree that I would like it to, because we're still fighting through the thorns and the rose, the bushes and the thorns with the sword and the shield to get, whereas I'm on the other side, walking into this expansive desert, going, what else is possible for us as a humanity through birth? And I got to experience it 3 times. In my daughter's birth at 46, my God, I'm so grateful to the universe, to her, for giving me that experience, that I could see what birth was about. And at one point in her birth, I looked up from the water birth pool and I said, birth is about healing. Birth is about healing this world. I felt it, and I had an amazing embodied somatic experience of healing on a greater field.
And that is so what we need for the world, Maha.
Yes.
And I want to thank you so much for your time today. I would love to talk to you all day and continue talking, but I think we probably had better wrap up for this episode. But I would really love for you to share with us where people can find you. I can put in the show notes after, so that people are able to come to things, or so you offer your courses? Are they online? Do you offer like online in-person work with people? Please let people know that you're offering, so that they can just be in your aura of wonderful wisdom, like we have just been for this lovely time.
Yes. So before COVID, I used to do a 4-day in-person training for birth professionals. And then I had to bring it all online, which I thought I would never do. How can I bring somatics online? But I've managed to do it with videos and, you know, different offerings. So now I have an EmbodyBirth educator online mentored training with me. Every year we start in March. Next year we've just started booking. We've just opened the doors to the container for March next year till October. So you become an EmbodyBirth educator, but you don't necessarily have to teach. You just want to come and sit with my wise words and learn about birth from this different perspective. Come and do my training. There's nothing like it. Yeah, it's the missing link in childbirth education. So it's EmbodyBirth, Bellydance birth educator training. So please come and join us next year. It's very reasonably priced. In fact, we had a $500 discount finishing today, the 10th of October. But it's still very reasonable. We do payment plans. I also have a beautiful 4 modules, 21 chapter birth preparation program online, which is a very deep dive. And we cover birth psychology, birth philosophy, birth physiology, and birth practice, the Bellydance birth. So that's available online. I also do counselling with women, especially women in their early 40s and beyond. I seem to get women in that age group, who really just can't believe I had a baby at 46. And I think it's important to come to women who've walked the path as well, because what you're hearing is an embodied language. You're feeling that this person, that living book within, has been read and the pages have been written in that book. And I think that's very important. And I have a beautiful book as a hard copy book. It's an award-winning world first book, Dance of the Womb, on belly dance for birth, endorsed by Dr. Michel Odent, Dr. Sarah Buckley and other people. It's very beautiful, my first book. I've got another book in the wings, The Sacred Feminine Language of Birth. It's more poems, little snippets. I sometimes do a 2-day in person. So I was in Europe last year and I was in Taiwan as well. So I do a 2-day in-person workshop on EmbodyBirth, and then people can join the training online from that. I'm always happy to travel. From 2027, I am open to travel. My daughter is turning 18 at the end of next year. 2026, I will have done 30 years non-stop of parenting. I'll be 64 and it's my time. So I want to come to Europe again. I'd love to come to England and teach. I've never come to the UK and taught. I'd love to talk to you about that. Would be wonderful.
I would love that.
Yeah, and I one of the things I think that's very important as well, and I was going to say this before, is women come to the elders. The elders, we have a wisdom that women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, even early 50s are still developing. It's still relevant and potent, but there's something about moving through the menopause. I'm 10 years post-menopause, that all the things start to come together in a unique and new way. I've never taken hormones. This is me, completely natural, because I want to feel everything. Yes, there's something very potent about coming to sit with the elders. And I think it would be wonderful again to do an elders conference. Indigenous women.
I'm down. Because I'm postmenopausal.
I feel some plans are brewing.
The integration is fierce, and I didn't know what was to come. And it does make me and other elders a unique experience when you speak with us.
Yes. And I think that's what's missing on social media a lot of the time is young girls are listening to young girls, but we're missing that tribal, wisdom of the elders and the maternal wisdom. And I think, and the grandmother energy. You know, I'm in that grandmother energy, not a grandma yet, but
I am a grandmother and I'm in my grandma energy, and I'm postmenopausal, a very juicy elder. So understand.
Very powerful, very, very powerful. So my Instagram at EmbodyBirth International, YouTube channel EmbodyBirth International, Facebook EmbodyBirth International, and my website is mahaAlMusa.com. So you can see on there, and just reach out at any time. Reach out, and I think we need to create a new kind of birth education institute for women. It would be so great. I've talked to my Italian friend, Antonella. She's a pre and perinatal psychologist. She's trying to get pre and perinatal psychology into the universities.
Yeah.
She's a doctor of that. And we've been talking about a centre. I know a lot of us have, somewhere in Europe, Italy or France or somewhere, where women can come and we can bring together all of our voices in one place. And we go back to the old ways of sitting in circle together, like I did in that pregnancy group. It is so powerful. Online is, but there's just something, as you know, very special about coming together. Yeah. So let's see, anything's possible. What else is possible?
We can have lots of wonderful plans for the future. Maha, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time.
You can sign up to the Birth Untethered mailing list from the link in the show notes, become an Untethered Rebel, support the show, and join the growing community that meet together online each month to share collective wisdom, support one another, and also to receive extra resources that supplement podcast episodes. The information shared in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice. The views and opinions expressed by guests are their own and may not reflect those of the hosts. This content does not replace professional medical guidance.